Stop. Just clear. Just clear them all. Go away.
I will continue working on the moths.
Yay!
The
Needs.
number one is finished, and I'm working on moth number 2.
Excellent. And I show them off. They're not huge in screen or anything, but look at that. Look at the beauty. I was super okay. So I painted Pisces last night, and then I came in this morning and I was like, holy shit.
It looks very nice.
It looks so nice. And there's you. Wait. Oh, I have trouble with this freaking camera. There we go.
Ooh, I haven't seen that finished. I love the nebula.
Right? It turned out so pretty. And it's a cashmere goat.
Excellent. This is a cat.
So are you sure you're going to be allowed to do any work tonight?
No, I am not sure about that at all.
We hope. We hope and pray. I've been craving a specific movie, and Abby was wanting to watch a movie today, so we watched The Court Jester. And
oh yeah,
he loved it.
It's such a good movie.
It's such a good. He was like, I want to know what those foreign language translations are, and it's like, babe, that's the best part. They're pure gibberish. And man, is it witty. Like every other scene, you've got this snap, 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 snap. He was stressed out by the parts where he thought that our hero would get caught, but like, and the juggling of the key and all of that. But I was like, yeah, it holds up. It holds up. It was incredibly progressive in the 1950s for the one who's willing to like deal the violence and be the warrior is the woman in the relationship, and she tells him no, sometimes a man is like what makes a man is kindness and tenderness. Like that wasn't said back then. That was beautiful. It's hard to, well, it's not hard to find people who will say that now. It's just really easy to find a lot of people who will shout the opposite.
Indeed.
But yeah.
I love the bit at the very beginning where he's like, I'm the fox, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be a Robin Hood movie, and then it's like, Hawkins, get out of my clothes.
Bait and switch, man. Oh, I love actually what I find jarring more than anything. I feel like there's a missing scene where the princess decides she likes Griswold after all, because she's like cuddling him in the final scene, and she's just spent the entire movie being like, I'd rather die.
Yeah, I don't.
Right? Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have myself a little headcanon scene like after the tournament. She saw him fight bravely, and something about that just triggered some love. And oh my god, is it so 50s in the costumes
My
and the
God.
oh, everything. Oh, wow. Yeah. And nobody bothered to do any accents.
Oh no.
This is medieval England where Danny Kaye talks like this. You're like, okay. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Well, I think, and the king talks like this, and
Right? He's a little better. Glynis Johns is actually British, so she did a good job. So's Angela Lansbury, but like, I think the guy playing the fox didn't try, and none of the tumbling troupe.
no.
Avi was utterly delighted with the little person fight scene. He thought there needs to be more of that going on. Oh, and Fergus the ostler was done dirty.
He was.
He
He was.
was. I want a shirt. Like Fergus deserved better, and people won't know what I'm talking about.
As opposed to the many other shirts we have mentally designed on this channel that are so obvious.
Justice for Fergus. That will be my. I love how everybody gets to have a happy ending, but the guy who did all the work and for no thanks whatsoever, who shuffled the baby and got the word out and did all of the communicating and all of the, he was like, yeah, no,
I
he's dead.
mean, yeah. That's what happens when you're the only competent person in the group project.
And we're just told in an offhand way that he was tortured to death, and you're like, damn it. Oh well. Chapter 8 is where we're at, of the darkening of Valinor. When Manwë heard of the ways that Melkor had taken, it seemed plain to him that he purposed to escape to his old strongholds in the north of Middle-earth. And Orome and Tulkas went with all speed northward, seeking to overtake him if they might, but they found no trace or rumor of him beyond the shores of the Teleri, in the unpeopled wastes that drew near to the ice. Because he doubled back, and they're just that dumb that
Pretty much, yeah.
excuse me, I'm
They were
having my
some
sip.
there were some like Elmer Fudd chasing Bugs Bunny type
Oh yeah. Yeah,
competence.
Melkor's standing there with like a lampshade on and they all run barreling past him.
Hey, have you seen Melkor around here? Gee, no, I don't think so. Okay,
You went
thanks.
that way. Thereafter the watch was redoubled along the northern fences of Aman, but to no purpose, for ere ever the pursuit set out, Melkor had turned back, and in secrecy passed away far to the south. For he was yet as one of the Valar, and could change his form, or walk unclad, as could his brethren. Though that power he was soon to lose for ever. Spoilers, Tolkien.
But also probably for the best
Right?
that he not be able to do that.
It's a little OP right now. Sorry, this is the last bite.
You can.
I am. My adventures in editing our old videos are showing me that there's a lot of times you could speak up, and a lot of times I should have fucking muted.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
It will continue.
Yep. Yeah. we have this. This is established. This is how this is how we roll. Thus, unseen, he came at last to the dark region of Avathar. Unseen. I'm still picturing the light. What lampshade? Avathar. That. Go ahead. Oh yeah. That narrow land lay south of the Bay of Eldamar, beneath the eastern feet of the Pelori, and its long and mournful shores stretched away into the south, lightless and unexplored. There, between the sheer walls of the mountains and the cold, dark sea, the shadows were deepest and thickest in the world. And there, in Avathar, secret and unknown, Ungoliant had made her abode. The Eldar knew not whence she came, but some have said that in ages long before she descended from the darkness that lies about Arda, when Melkor first looked down in envy upon the kingdom of Manwë, and that in the beginning she was one of those that he corrupted to his service. But she had disowned her master, desiring to be mistress of her own lust, taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness. And she fled to the south, escaping the assaults of the Valar and the hunters of Orome, for their vigilance had ever been to the north, and the south was long unheeded.
Because they're idiots.
Tactics, guys, tactics. Oh dear.
Seriously, one competent administrator among the Valar would have changed this whole book.
Everything. Oh, God. Thence she had crept towards the light of the blessed realm, for she hungered for light and hated it. No one's ever drawn a word picture of addiction as well as Tolkien does tend to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In a ravine she lived, and took shape as a spider of monstrous form, weaving her black webs in a cleft of the mountains. There she sucked up all light that she could find, and spun it forth again in dark nets of strangling gloom, until no light more could come to her abode, and she was famished. Which, and I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but so she's a black hole.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. That's the description of a black hole.
Yeah,
If we ever like have a reason to need to name a black hole, I think we should name it Ungoliant.
Ungoliant. Yeah, yeah. I I think that would be a smart people thing to do. I hope we never have need to name a black hole that is eating everything in its path.
I mean, that would be preferable, yes.
Right? We wouldn't want to like name the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy Ungoliant because that's just bad omen.
That is indeed a bad omen.
But now, Melkor came to Avathar and sought her out, and he put on again the form that he had worn as the tyrant of Atumno, a dark lord, tall and terrible. Oh, so goth. In that form he remained ever after. There in the black
Whoops.
shadows. What? Your face stuck that way.
I was gonna say exactly that. If you keep taking on that form, your face is gonna stick that way.
And it did.
And it did.
There in the black shadows beyond the sight even of Manwë in his highest halls, Melkor, with Ungoliant, plotted his revenge. But when Ungoliant understood the purpose of Melkor, she was torn between lust and great fear. For she was loath to dare the perils of Aman and the power of the dreadful lords, and she would not stir from her hiding. Therefore Melkor said to her, "Do as I bid, and if thou hunger still demand and if thou hunger still when all is done, then I will give thee whatsoever thy lust may demand, yea, with both hands." Lightly he made this vow, as he ever did, and he laughed in his heart. Thus did the great thief set his lure for the lesser. Coming through!
Yup.
A cloak of darkness she wove about them when Melkor and Ungoliant set forth, an unlight in which things seemed to be no more, and which eyes could not pierce, for it was void. She cloaked them.
She did.
Yeah.
This is the third time.
Then slowly she wrought her webs, rope by rope, from cleft to cleft, from jutting rock to pinnacle of stone, ever climbing upwards, crawling and clinging, until at last she reached the very summit of Hiarmentir, the highest mountain in that region of the world, far south of Great Taniquetil. There the Valar were not vigilant.
Yeah, we've
Big
established that, Tolkien. Thank you.
For west of the Pelori was an empty land in twilight, and eastward the mountains looked out, save for forgotten Avathar, only upon the dim waters of the pathless sea. But now upon the mountain top dark Ungoliant lay, and she made a ladder of woven ropes and cast it down, and Melkor climbed upon it and came to that high place and stood beside her, looking down upon the guarded realm. I'm sorry, I'm picturing a Dark Lord climbing a rope ladder, and it's hilarious.
Little to the left, your other left, Ungoliant.
And the thing like twirls, turns gently in the breeze. Whoa!
Gets stuck to it a couple of times because it is a spider's web after all.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah. Phew. Below them lay the woods of Orome, and westward shimmered the fields and pastures of Yavanna, gold beneath the tall wheat of the gods. But Melkor looked north and saw afar the shining plain and the silver domes of Valmar gleaming in the mingling of the lights of Telperion and Lorelin. Then Melkor laughed aloud and leaped swiftly down the long western slopes, and
Ha
Ungoliant
ha!
was at his side, and her darkness covered them. What?
I said, ha ha!
Ha ha! Now it was a time of festival, as Melkor knew well. Though all tides and seasons were at the will of the Valar, and in Valinor there was no winter of death. Nonetheless, they dwelt then in the kingdom of Arda, and that was but a small realm in the halls of Ea, whose life is time, which flows ever from the first note to the last chord of Eru. And even as it was then the delight of the Valar, as is told in the Ainulin Dole, to clothe themselves as in a vesture in the forms of the children of Iluvatar, so also did they eat and drink and gather the fruits of Yavanna from the earth, which under Eru they had made. Which is a long paragraph to be like, okay, look, this might look like it's inconsistent, but it's not. So shut up.
It makes sense. I just didn't explain this to you before because it wasn't relevant.
They don't have to have a harvest festival, but they wanted to. So they did.
And actually, that I can kind of understand. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Sure.
yeah. Like, please do not forget that eating is fun and that they wanted to do it. So, anyway. Therefore, Yavanna set times for the flowering and the ripening of all things that grew in Valinor. And at each first gathering of fruits, Manwë made a high feast for the praising of Eru, when all the peoples of Valinor poured forth their joy and music and song upon Taniquetil. This now was the hour, and Manwë decreed a feast more glorious than any that had been held since the coming of the Eldar to Aman. At least one evil spirit of pure vengeance is on the loose. Come on, guys!
Let's have a party.
Big
I'm telling
party!
you.
Big party.
Just
You'll never even notice things going on around the fringes of my big party.
oh, God.
For though the escape of Melkor portended toils and sorrows to come, and indeed none could tell what further hurts would be done to Arda ere he could be subdued again, at this time Manwë designed to heal the evil that had arisen among the Noldor, and all were bidden to come to his halls upon Taniquetil, there to put aside the griefs that lay between their princes and forget utterly the lies of their enemy. Okay, I'll give him that.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think it's a great idea.
It was for morale boosting, and I think that was important. But yeah, no, not a great idea. Not what they could have set a guard on the trees or something, you know?
Well, I mean, they didn't really know that the trees were in trouble, but I just think, like, hey, let's everybody just, forget your problems and your worries and your cares. Hakuna Matata, like, doesn't really ever work.
It does not, no. What is she getting into, by the way?
No idea.
It's loud.
It is. Let me see if I can find what it is.
It's okay, I can be louder.
Wait, you. You.
I lied, I had more chocolate. There came the Vanyar, and there came the Noldor of Tirion, and the Maiar were gathered together, and the Valar were arrayed in their beauty and majesty, and they sang before Manwë and Varda in their lofty halls, or danced upon the green slopes of the mountain that looked west towards the trees. In that day the streets of Valmar were empty, and the stairs of Tirion were silent, and all the land lay sleeping in peace. Only the Teleri beyond the mountains still sang upon the shores of the sea, for they recked little of seasons or times, and gave no thought to the cares of the rulers of Arda, or the shadow that had fallen on Valinor, for it had not touched them as yet. See, this is along the same lines as the whole they came for blah blah blah, and I didn't pay attention because that wasn't me.
Yeah,
The Teleri should have been paying better attention.
they should have. But I mean, they didn't exactly have good examples. Like, basically, at this point, everyone in the world is a teenager who doesn't know what they need to be doing.
Everyone. And it's like a whole bunch of well-meaning teenagers who cannot even fathom what harm feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and one who wants to teach them that. Like, ow.
Yep. Even though he himself cannot actually fathom it either.
Right? One thing only marred the design of Manwë. Feanor came, indeed, for him alone Manwë had commanded to come, but Finwë came not, nor any others of the Noldor of Formenos. For, said Finwë, while the ban lasts upon Feanor my son, that he may not go to Tirion, I hold myself unkinged, and I will not meet my people. Stubborn bastard. And Feanor came not in raiment of festival, and he wore no ornament, neither silver nor gold, nor any gem, and he denied the sight of the Silmarils to the Valar and the Eldar, and left them locked in Formenos in their chamber of iron. Nevertheless,
Which,
that's
that was probably smart.
no, because that means they're unguarded. Damn it! Ah!
Well, but Finway's there.
Yeah, let's see how that goes.
Oh dear.
Nevertheless, he met Fingolfin before the throne of Manwë, and was reconciled in word.
We have learned hypocrisy, have we?
Oh,
Well
yeah.
done.
And Fingolfin set at naught the unsheathing of the sword. For Fingolfin held forth his hand, saying, As I promised, I do now. I release thee, and remember no grievance, because Fingolfin's nice. We like Fingolfin. Not as much as we like Finarfin.
Yeah, where is Finarfin in all of this?
Let's see if he turns up. Then Feanor took his hand in silence, but Fingolfin said, Half-brother in blood, full brother in heart will I be. Thou shalt lead, and I will follow. May no new grief divide us. I hear thee, said Feanor. So be it. But they did not know the meaning that their words would bear. It sounds like she's knocking over furniture.
Oh my god. She's playing with a paper bag.
Oh, okay.
I'm terribly
It
sorry.
sounds like a folding chair being strapped around.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is okay. We can live with this. It is told that even as Feanor and Fingolfin stood before Manwë, there came the mingling of the lights, when both trees were shining and the silent city of Valmar was filled with a radiance of silver and gold. And in that very hour, Melkor and Ungoliant came hastening over the fields of Valinor, as the shadow of a black cloud upon the wind fleets over the sunlit earth, and they came before the green mound as Lahar. Then the unlight of Ungoliant rose up even to the roots of the trees, and Melkor sprang upon the mound, and with his black spear he smote each tree to its core, wounded them deep, and their sap poured forth as it were their blood, and was spilled upon the ground. But Ungoliant sucked it up, and going then from tree to tree, she set her black beak to their wounds till they were drained, and the poison of death that was in her went into their tissues and withered them, root, branch, and leaf, and they died. And still she thirsted, and going to the wells of Varda, she drank them dry. But Ungoliant belched forth black vapors as she drank, and swelled to a shape so vast and hideous that Melkor was afraid.
So that's pretty bad.
Yep. Ooh, here's an illustration of Taniquetil. It looks like one of Tolkien's own works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Any whoozy whatsits. So the great darkness fell upon Valinor. Of the deeds of that day, much is told in the Aldudenye.
Sure it is.
Yeah. Do we have an Aldudenye? Doesn't look like it. It might be in one of the books of Lost Tales or something. That Elamire of the Vanyar made and is known to all the Eldar. Yet no song or tale could contain all the grief and terror that then befell. The light failed, but the darkness that followed was more than loss of light. In that hour was made a darkness that seemed not lack, but a thing with being of its own. For it was indeed made by malice, out of light, and it had power to pierce the eye, and to enter heart and mind, and strangle the very will. Crap.
I mean, that's the darkness when you wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare and you're like, can't move. That's that thing.
Varda looked down from Taniquetil and beheld the shadows soaring up in sudden towers of gloom. Valmar had foundered in a deep sea of night. Soon the holy mountain stood alone, a last island in a world that was drowned. All songs ceased. There was silence in Valinor, and no sound could be heard, save only from afar there came on the wind through the pass of the mountains the wailing of the Teleri, like the cold cry of gulls. For it blew chill from the east in that hour, and the vast shadows of the sea were rolled against the walls of the shore. But Manwë from his high seat looked out, and his eyes alone pierced through the night until they saw a darkness beyond dark, which they could not penetrate. Huge but far away, moving now northward with great speed. Manwë's got built-in infrared goggles. And he knew that Melkor had come and gone. Then the pursuit was begun, and the earth shook beneath the horses of the host of Orome, and the fire that was stricken from the hooves of Nahar was the first light that returned to Valinor. But so soon as any came up with the cloud of Ungoliant, the riders of the Valar were blinded and dismayed, and they were scattered, and went they knew not whither, and the sound of the Valaroma faltered and failed. And Tulkas was as one caught in a black net at night, and he stood powerless and beat the air in vain. But when the darkness had passed, it was too late. Melkor had gone whither he would, and his vengeance was achieved. I mean, yeah, he didn't do
Yeah.
anything. He didn't do anything. That's like it's like you wait until freaking tsunami takes a village that had insulted you, and you're like, ha ha, my vengeance.
I mean, sort of, but he did. I mean, he did stab the trees. And if he hadn't stabbed the trees, then probably Ungoliant couldn't have like gotten to the sap to bite them and kill them.
Right? Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was mostly her.
It was mostly her.
Something something behind every powerful man is a woman.
Is a great she demon sucking trees dry.
Is a great she demon powered by hate and the blackness of her heart.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know that saying.
I do. It's a common phrase down our way. Chapter 9. Oh my god, we made it through a whole fucking chapter. It's because I'm kind of in a rush. I don't want to stick around when all the bad shit's happening that was so preventable.
Just incredibly preventable.
Yeah. I mean, preventable from the get go by like starting the battle at the beginning of time so that so that Middle Earth could be habitable.
Yeah, like they built Arda and then they fought over it and then they were like, we're gonna build it again. And then they fought over it again. And then they put Melkor in prison, but then they let him out. What did they expect? Shocked Pikachu face. Now they have to fight over it again. Like,
Yeah. Like,
stop letting him out.
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 9 times. Chapter 9 of the Flight of the Noldor. After a time, a great concourse gathered about the Ring of Doom, and the Valar sat in shadow, for it was night. But the stars of Varda now glimmered overhead, and the air was clear, for the winds of Manwë had driven away the vapors of death and rolled back the shadows of the sea. Then Yavanna arose and stood upon Azelohar, the green mound, but it was bare now and black. And she laid her hands upon the trees, but they were dead and dark, and each branch that she touched broke and fell lifeless at her feet. Then many voices were lifted in lamentation. That's the right way to react when a tree dies, even if it wasn't one of the trees of light at the beginning of the world. That's, yeah. And it seemed to those that mourned that they had drained to the dregs the cup of woe that Melkor had filled for them, but it was not so.
There was more woe where that came
So
from.
much woe. The woe is up to here, man. Yavanna spoke before the Valar, saying, "The light of the trees has passed away, and lives now only in the Silmarils of Feanor. Foresighted was he. Even for those who are mightiest under Ilúvatar, there is some work that they may accomplish once and once only. The light of the trees I brought into being, and within Ea I can do so never again. Yet had I but a little of that light, I could recall life to the trees ere their roots decay, and then our hurt should be healed, and the malice of Melkor be confounded." Then Manwë spoke and said, "Hearest thou, Feanor, son of Finwë, the words of Yavanna? Wilt thou grant what she would ask?" "No." There was a long
Fucking
silence.
Feanor.
Yeah, fucking Feanor. There was a long silence, but Feanor answered no word. Then Tulkas cried, "Speak, O Noldo, yea or nay? But who shall deny Yavanna? And did not the light of the Silmarils come from her work in the beginning?" But Aule the Maker said, "Be not hasty. We ask a greater thing than thou knowest. Let him have peace yet a while." But Feanor spoke then and cried bitterly, "For the less even as for the greater, there is some deed that he may accomplish but once only. and in that deed his heart shall rest. It may be that I can unlock my jewels, but never again shall I make their like, and if I must break them, I shall break my heart, and I shall be slain. First of all the Eldar and Amon.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem.
Not the first, said Mandos, but they did not understand his word. And again there
Oops.
was silence, while Feanor brooded in the dark. It seemed to him that he was beset in a ring of enemies, and the words of Melkor returned to him, saying that the Silmarils were not safe if the Valar would possess them. And is he
That's
not Vala, as are they? Said his thought. And does he not understand their hearts? Yea, a thief shall reveal thieves. Then he cried aloud, This thing I will not do of free will. But if the Valar will constrain me, then shall I know indeed that Melkor is of their kindred.
he's such a tool.
He's such
Yeah.
a tool. He's such a tool. No, I get it. I get it. But if somebody told me that the elemental paintings, which I poured my heart and soul into and could never do twice, were the key to saving the world, but I would, I'd have to destroy them and then the world would be saved. Like, if I knew that was the case, it would be like, dude, here's a lighter. Fuck.
Right? Like, man, that sucks. I'm really gonna hate it when that happens. Here you go.
Yeah. I'm gonna cry. Don't think I won't cry. But there are things more important than the shit that we make, and Feanor never did understand that.
Nope, not even a little bit.
Not even.
There are things more important than our own preferences, and Feanor never understood that.
No. He's just, I don't know. Is there a modern equivalent of somebody that gifted but also that destructive? Not just self-destructive, but like widely destructive. I can think of people who are either gifted or
Yeah, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who's both.
Yeah. It's a believable conceit. It's just like, ugh. Oh, there's that. Okay. Then Mandos said, Thou hast spoken. And Nienna arose and went up onto Ezolahar and cast back her grey hood, and with her tears washed away the defilements of Ungoliant. And she sang in mourning for the bitterness of the world and the marring of Arda. But even as Nienna mourned, there came messengers from Formenos, and they were Noldor, and bore new tidings of evil. For they now told how a blind darkness came northward, and in the midst walked some power for which there was no name, and the darkness issued from it. But Melkor also was there, and he came to the house of Feanor, and there he slew Finwë, king of the Noldor, before his doors, and spilled the first blood in the blessed realm. For Finwë alone had not fled from the horror of the dark. And they told that Melkor had broken the stronghold of Formenos, and taken all the jewels of the Noldor that were hoarded in that place, and the Silmarils were gone. So, our boy looked like a selfish tool for nothing.
No reason.
He could have tried and worked it out in his brain and been like, you know what, just so even if it was just so I don't look bad, sure, you could have them. They're gone.
Well, and like that he had no reason to suspect that this had well, okay, he had a reason to suspect that this would happen, but he didn't know this had happened. So like even if he'd not been a tool and been like, let me think about it, 20 minutes later someone would have been like, the Silmarils are gone, and he would have not had to be the bad guy.
Completely moot. Yeah. Yep. Nope. he had his
And
tantrum
then he
front and center, and now everybody knows what he is, and it doesn't even matter.
and it doesn't even matter. And he could have just been like, "Oh man, I would have given them to you. What a
Right?
shame." But yeah.
Yeah. I would have tried at least. I don't know. He said, ugh. How would you cast Feanor? Who could do, because the story works better if you kind of like him. If you wish you didn't, but you kind of do. If you think he's pretty brilliant, you
Hmm.
can't argue with that. Like, I don't know. I keep picturing one of the Chris's, but I think they're all aging out of it.
Yeah, they're too old, and yeah, not quite. It needs to be somebody that's a little bit more unapproachable. All the Chris's are very like everyman. You need someone who's a little bit ethereal.
Yeah. Oh, we should think on it. Casting Feanor, that's your homework. And this, so your dad's dead, your jewels are gone, you're a dickhead for with nothing to live for. Then Feanor rose, and lifting up his hand before Manwë, he cursed Melkor, naming him Morgoth, the black foe of the world. And by that name only was he known to the Eldar ever after. See, even in his worst moment, he manages to do something that lasts forever. He's a fucking legend. He's just awful. And he cursed also, oh dear, he cursed also the summons of Manwë and the hour in which he came to Taniquetil, thinking in the madness of his rage and grief that had he been at Formenos, his strength would have availed more than to be slain also, as Melkor had purposed. Then Feanor
Nope.
ran from the ring of doom and fled into the night, for his father was dearer to him than the light of Valinor or the peerless works of his hands. And who among sons of elves or of men have held their fathers of greater worth? The one thing you loved.
And like also never made any like indication of it until he was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like no one would have
Treated him
guessed.
pretty shitty. Well,
Yeah, no
treated
one would
him
have.
like a commodity. The whole thing with his half brother, like you're trying to steal my dad's affections. Like your dad's
Mhm.
affections are an object that people can steal. You really believe that? Oh, many there grieved for the anguish of Feanor, but his loss was not his alone, and Yavanna wept by the mound, in fear that the darkness should swallow the last rays of the light of Valinor forever. For though the Valar did not yet understand fully what had befallen, because of because they're them,
Is there them?
they perceived that Melkor had called upon some aid that came from beyond Arda. The Silmarils had passed away, and all one it may seem whether Feanor had said yea or nay to Yavanna. Yet had he said yea at the first, before the tidings came from Formenos, it may be that his after deeds would have been other than they were. But now the doom of the
Mhm.
Noldor drew near.
Yep, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. It's not necessarily that it would have made a difference then, but you might have been a little less willing to, I don't know, commit some. What's genocide when it's your own people?
I think it's still genocide.
Okay. Uh, fratricide,
Atrocities of various sorts.
various atrocities. Meanwhile, Morgoth, escaping from the pursuit of the Valar, came to the.
That was the most Hanna-Barbera ass narration.
was going for 1940s newsreel, but
That too! Same voice!
I'm going to Tolkienhead hell for that, aren't I?
Just for that?
So, meanwhile, Morgoth, escaping from the pursuit of the Valar, came to the wastes of Araman. This land lay northward between the mountains of the Pelori and the Great Sea, as Avathar lay to the south. So Araman north, Avathar south, because Tolkien needs alliteration or he will die.
Well, I mean, in fairness, we have the Arctic and the Antarctic, but I think that designation makes sense on account of it is bears and no bears.
Yeah.
Very simple to understand.
So simple. Whereas Avathar and Araman mean I don't know what. Mean 3-syllable words starting with A that means a place that we don't have cities. But Araman was a wider land, and between the shores and the mountains were barren plains, ever colder as the ice drew nearer. Through this region Morgoth and Ungoliant passed in haste, and so came through the great mists of, oh God, Oyomure. O-I-O, Oyo, Mure, M-U with a dash. What's that called? R-E with an umlaut. Oh, there's a dash and then an umlaut. Dash over U, umlaut over E.
That's too many things, Tolkien. Pick one.
Oyomure. Also, it sounds a bit like a nonsense punk song. Oyomure.
Oi, oh Murray. Oi, oi, oh Murray.
Anyway, they produce mists, apparently. The great mists of Oyomore to the Helcaraxe.
Yeah, the Hellcracks.
Hellcracks, where the strait between Araman and Middle-earth was filled with grinding ice. Yeah, Hellcracks.
That one's not subtle.
Unlike Oi, Omure, Oi, Oi, Oi. Anyway, strait filled with grinding ice, and he crossed over and came back at last to the north of the outer lands. Together they went on, for Morgoth could not elude Ungoliant, and her cloud was still about him, and all her eyes were upon him. And they came to those lands that lay north of the Firth of Drengist. You know.
Yeah, those lands.
Those ones, of course. Now Morgoth was drawing near to the ruins of Angband, where his great western stronghold had been, and Ungoliant perceived his hope, and knew that here he would seek to escape from her, and she stayed him, demanding that he fulfill his promise. Blackheart, she said, I have done thy bidding, but I hunger still. What wouldst thou have more? Said Morgoth. Dost thou desire all the world for thy belly? I did not vow to give thee that. I am its lord.
Pretty sure you vowed to give her anything, bud, but you never meant to keep that, so it's irrelevant.
Not so much, said Ungoliant, but thou hast a great treasure from Formenos. I will have all that, yea, with both hands thou shalt give it. Then, perforce, Morgoth surrendered to her the gems that he bore with him, one by one, and grudgingly. And she devoured them, and their beauty perished from the world. Huger and darker yet grew Ungoliant, but her lust was unsated. With one hand thou givest, she said, with the left only? Open thy right hand. In his right hand Morgoth held close the Silmarils, and though they were locked in a crystal casket, they had begun to burn him, and his hand was clenched in pain. But he would not open it. Nay, he said, thou hast had thy due, for with my power that I put into thee, thy work was accomplished. I need thee no more. These things thou shalt not have, nor see. I name them unto myself forever. And it's 8 o'clock, so we'll find out how that conversation went some other time.
Alrighty. Well,
I imagine it doesn't go well for Ungoliant since, Morgoth exists later and in the stories, and
and
she doesn't.
indeed.
Yeah.
I did see a thing that was talking about the fact that like Kirith Ungol means pass of the spider, and so when Faramir's like, I don't know what's up there, it's like, really?
We've
How could
had
we
this
ever guess?
conversation. You and I have been like we might have originated that where we're like, really, spider pass, you didn't know? You thought maybe that Monsieur Spider discovered it?
What could it
What
be?
could
Yeah.
be? Lots of teeny tiny spiders?
Well, fair enough. It could have been that.
Maybe the path branches, and on a map it kind of looks like, yeah. No,
No,
no, it's a fucking kaiju.
it's Bigfoot.
There is apparently an argument about the plague of frogs in the Bible,
I've heard this, whether it was many frogs or one big frog.
because the original script used the singular rather than the plural, and it didn't have to. So, yeah. Yep, the biblical frog and the Middle Earth spider should duke it out, and then we'll have a kaiju movie worth watching.
On that note, I will see you next week.
All right, I love you so much. Mwah.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Yamas.
Good night.